So let's do this. So when we were discussing the JetBrains JavaScript Day, marketing was asking me, well, Jan-Niklas, could you do like a product talk? Like, can you show some fancy features? Wouldn't that be a cool idea? And I was like, yeah, that would be a great idea. I don't like product talks like this. So, and I was trying to find a way out of this. And around the same time, the Alive podcast with Steve Burns came out, who's the original host for Blue's Clues, best kids show after Miss Rachel. That's not the point. The point of this podcast was, and you can watch the trailer and you will know exactly what I mean. The podcast is described as the podcast that listens. And that is such an interesting concept where I was like, okay, this is not a one-way discussion. This is more like having an active conversation. And this is more what I wanted to do with this. We have heard this often over the last couple of weeks that we talk just about certain things here at JetBrains, or to some of our users, it's not clear how we see the vision for certain products. So I wanted with this talk to address those things heads on and in the most genuine way that I can think of, instead of like giving you a fancy polished marketing talk. The idea of this talk is giving you my unfiltered personal opinion on this, and we'll see how this goes. So I'm personally a very, very big fan of transparency, and I hope that I can show that to you with this talk. To me, super brief, we've talked all day. So I'm developer advocate here at JetBrains for JavaScript and TypeScript. So I'm most closely working with the WebStorm team, but also a couple other folks. I'm also part of the RxJS core team. I'm an Angular GDE, so I'm also super excited for Jessica's talk later today. And as every white man my age, I had the chance to either get into climbing or create a podcast. So I did both. And this is where we have Weekly Devs Brew, where a lot of the guests today were on, and that was mentioned a couple of times. Last episode was actually with Luca that covered a lot of the things we talked about. So go check that out if you like this concept. Let's go to the talk. I started this, I think, early August. I started the concrete work with this. And how I went about this was by asking our users, hey, what are things that are unclear to you? What are points of frustration that you have that you don't, what are points where you don't feel listened to, heard of? And I wanted to address them as transparent as possible. There were hundreds of comments that I, to some extent, also need to get back to, but I tried to group them as good as I can and came up with those 5 categories. JetBrains is only focusing on AI, which is not so much a WebStorm-specific topic, but a general JetBrains thing. There were 2 questions to some extent about resource allocation. Why do you use so much memory? Take CPU, it doesn't really matter. We have a couple product decision topics. How do you prioritize bug, and what even happens with the bugs that I create? I have 15 tickets open, and it seems like none of them are moving forward. And the last thing, and that I hear often, and fair enough, I also asked that the team lead when I joined, why are we not just using LSP for all the things? Every editor out there is using LSP. Why are we not? So I hope that with the covering or talking about these 5 points, sharing my perspective, I can help you understand our way of thinking about this a little bit better. The thing with JetBrains is only focusing on AI is, to be frank, hilarious to me, because what I see is kind of twofold. I see either the comments that say, oh, you're just doing AI things right now. But on the other hand, I also see those comments that say, well, you're not doing AI enough. You need to focus more on AI, you're falling behind, which is a weird duality to be in. And from my perspective, I hope this is big enough, but we'll also share the slides of this. AI for developers is a super interesting field, and we kind of have like a wide spectrum of things. From kind of, if we look at it on a scale, we have on the very left side, I don't want to use AI at all. I think it's just nonsense. It makes me less productive. I don't want anything to do with that. That is a very, very viable approach to that. And on the right-hand side, we have very much like, I don't even care about the code. I just wanted to generate my software, and I don't want to deal with that, like more the vibe code approach. And here at JetBrains, to be honest, we kind of try different products right now to picture the whole spectrum. We still very much believe in our IDEs as a core to our AI business for fostering a great community of people that don't want to use AI if they don't have to. The plugin can be uninstalled, can be deleted, can be removed. You can burn it with fire, totally up to you. We also have our AI assistant that brings a normal chat experience, as you're familiar with it, also with like editing experience, like next edit suggestions, code completion, and those things. We have Junie for our agentic experience, and recently, last month, we published our it's not so much a proof of concept at this point, but we published Kineto, which is a little bit our idea for vibe coding web applications, at least. The thing that I want to be super clear on here is JetBrains' mission has always been on improving developer experience, improving developer productivity. That is literally our core business, and this is literally driven into us. This is quite literally everything we care about. And got a little ahead of myself. And the thing with AI is it fits this mission very well. I personally don't believe that AI for developers will go away. It will be an integral part of our workflow. So it would be insane for us to not support it at all. But there are also approaches where deterministic workflows are just more sophisticated. And we very much do that. We often hear this feedback, well, but if you would just focus more on WebStorm or another product, instead of shipping all these AI features, you could actually tackle all this bugs in the software. And while this is fundamentally on a high level, this is true somewhere, the thing that is important to me, particularly coming from the WebStorm side, is not a single developer from the WebStorm team changed towards any of the AI teams. So this whole argument is kind of weird when I'm like, well, okay, so do you want some of the ML engineers that we have for AI stuff do bug fixes on WebStorm? It just doesn't make sense. It's also not how teams work. We're way too big of a company to just say, oh, please, I don't even know how many developers we have. Oh, please, all 1,000 developers, please fix this one bug. That's not how this makes sense. And we're all developers. We know this. So I want to be crystal clear with that. JetBrains doesn't see a future. JetBrains as a whole doesn't see a future where AI will replace developers as a whole. So it would be insane for us to just say AI all the things. Okay, coming to bug reports, and that is now a little bit more WebStorm specific because the processes can be very different from product to product. Whereas the part before about how we see AI is more as JetBrains as a whole, this is more towards how WebStorm handles bugs. And I personally have my experiences with Utrecht, so I know what a lot of people feel like when they say, oh, I created 10 bugs and they are not getting taken care of. And that is very fine. I feel like this node module meme captures this essence very well. And we have a lot of open issues in Utrecht. I don't want to dismiss that at all. I do want to share some transparency of how we go about bugs, how they come into our system, how we tackle them. And I very much simplified the process to be able to fit this on the slide. But the first step at any given time is that our support team tries to reproduce this or understands the issue better. From there on, once we have clear steps, this is how this works, this is how this issue comes along, we hand this to our development team. From the development team, we hand it to our QA team. From the QA team, we decide, hey, can this go in the minor release, depending on where we are on the release cycle, or in the next major release? Sounds fairly straightforward. There are 4 areas out of these 7 bullet points where I see potential contention coming up more often than it should be. We have in the triage step, there are often things like, okay, we are not able to reproduce this. Can you provide us a little bit more detail? And I mean, we're all software developers. This happens for every kind of bug. Unless you're able to reproduce it, it's kind of a shot in the dark. We also have the thing, and this is something really interesting that is, I don't even know where it's coming from, but at the time when a ticket was triaged, we assign it to a developer. and this information that the ticket has been assigned to a developer is public, I don't think it sends the right signals though. Because for most development workflows, once a ticket is assigned, it kind of means I'm going to work on this. This is not how we do things. Instead, what this means is, hey, developer, we would like you to work on this at some point. There's no prioritization at that point. It is really more like, this falls in your wheelhouse. Please take care of it eventually. Also, during the development workflow, there might be, again, questions coming up like, hey, how do you think about this certain feature? So there's also, again, this friction in terms of like communication. And lastly, once a ticket has been implemented, we set the ticket status to fixed, which sounds very much like me as a user, hey, I can use this now. That's also not quite true. This just means it has been merged at this point. So it will be available in one of the next releases. So there are just a lot of things going on. And the thing that I want to make clear is those are all common issues that boil down to those three things. It's either there's a communication mismatch happening. We are not entirely clearly communicating our intentions about certain tickets. And it's also sometimes unclear, okay, this bug, is this a priority for us or not? So the thing that I want to make crystal clear here is we as JetBrains see those issues in our workflow. Oh, we as WebStorm, I should say. We as WebStorm see those issues in the way we're working and the impact it has on our users. So we are in the process of improving the workflow. It's still way too early in that process to really say, here are the 5 things that are going to change that make your life so much better and go fix all the problems. The thing is also working within the whole JetBrains IDE platform is just way too big of a thing that you can just do. I'll just do this change real quick. So this will take some time, and we will be more upfront about this in our communication and the impact it has on you. The message that I want to share here is we are aware that working with Utrecht can feel more frustrating than it should be for you as a user reporting issues to us. The thing you can do in the meantime that help you a little bit with that mitigate a little bit of this pain, is we have, and I highlighted the 3 sections here in general. Those are the important information. We have a section within Utrecht, which is pinned comments. Pinned comments are made by us where we share status updates, where we basically tell you this is key information so that you don't need to scroll through all the comments, particularly in tickets that just have like, oh, I have the same issue, or I have the same issue, I've had the same issue. This is, for instance, where we share if something got implemented, when it gets implemented, those kind of status updates that are key information. The other thing is the available in field on the very left side. That tells you if this feature is fixed, when will it be actually available. This we set at the time of merge. So at that time, we know when the feature will come to you as users. And on that note, the state is also somewhat important, because assigned really doesn't mean a thing. Fixed means the fix has been implemented. Doesn't mean it's rolled out to you. So if you have those 3 information, these gives you the idea of when do I get this feature. The thing that those kind of brings up, though, is, well, but how do we go about prioritizing those things? And from my perspective, I think if you ask other people within WebStorm, they will have slight variation of that. But from my perspective, particularly talking about bugs, we have these 4 dimensions, bugs and features. There's the aspect of criticality. Does this severely impact your workflow? Does this block you? Is this targeting millions of users, etc., etc.? It would also be careless of us if we didn't look at things like conversion. Is this a feature that would allow us to acquire new users, for instance? It is a very viable and interesting metric for us. Impact and criticality is kind of similar. The other thing that is very interesting coming from our side, effort is very, 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 very much driving some of the decision. Because while things look easy, they might not necessarily are easy. And I dig through some example usage statistics. One feature that I personally love in WebStorm is the capability to extract HTML parts from one component, create a new component from that. We have this feature in React, Angular, and Vue. I love this feature, but statistics just show that those features are not used. Those are literally statistics from the people that are just using the respective frameworks. And we're still talking about sub 1% of people that share the data with us. So there is a little bit of like a hidden number in that as well. But from that aspect, it really is hard to justify if we have a bug ticket for, well, in this certain edge case, refactoring an Angular component doesn't work, but we don't see this feature being used. I don't mean this in any dismissive way. This is just how reality works. If I have something that impacts a lot of people versus something that might just benefit one person, that goes way more into prioritization. So I've wanted to look at this more. And for the year 2025, WebStorm plus the IntelliJ platform team together fixed over 1,500 bugs and 200 new features. I shared this metric here particularly because very often we get this question of like, why don't you just start fixing bugs instead of working on new features? Truth be told, we are doing this right now. I wholesomely believe that we can do a much better job talking about this. Instead, usually in our promotion material, we promote new features because that's usually interesting to a wider audience. Again, talking about the reach aspect of things. But in our changelog, you will see the amount of bugs we fix compared to the amount of new features that we tackle. But you might now ask, well, you implemented 1,500 or fixed 1,500 bugs, but I still see performance issues. So I want to share some transparency of how we look at performance. And for that, we have something called AppDex. I have no idea what it is and what the acronym stands for. And honestly, I also don't care. The thing, what it expresses, I think is really interesting. So we come up with a metric where we say for syntax highlighting, users are tolerating if syntax highlighting.
While he's doing a swap right there, we'll talk about this a little bit. This is something that we pay a lot of attention to internally across our IDEs. And this is part of over the days, weeks, months, years, and for us, decades. We build up a lot of knowledge on this, a lot of institutional wisdom, processes, and things like that. Jan, are you good?
Do you hear me? You
I
tell me.
do. So I was
Okay.
about to give your next slide, which gave away the answer to this, but I'll let you tell the end of the story.
I would love you to do my talk. That would be so fun, just me designing the slides. So we came up with this AppDex score. And again, I don't know, I also don't quite know where I cut off, but the AppDex score, I have no idea what it stands for. We define a tolerating value for things like syntax highlighting, for instance. So we say if syntax highlighting takes 300 milliseconds, that's tolerating for our users. And if it takes 500 milliseconds, that's what we call the frustration value. That's unacceptable. And with looking at actual users and tracking the time what this takes, we get a value that express how satisfied users are with the performance in our tools. And this is really interesting because it covers the entire spectrum of our users, right? This is users running this on their machines that are like able to mine Bitcoins, I don't know, right? But also people that work on a shitty ThinkPad from 2008. So the story why I tell you all this is for you. It's a little small, but you see here a comparison where we actually had a performance regression that we noticed, and I want to share how we went about this. So with the 2023.3 release, that is this long line here, we saw that code completion was roughly at a satisfaction score of 0.85. It's very tiny on my screen, so I cannot quite see it. And once we released 2024.1, we noticed this severe degradation. Like, yes, it's just averaging all users, so you might always have a little bit up and down, as you see in this chart, but this is a severe degradation. And we noticed that and fixed it. And this is also the reason why back here in 2024.2, we went back to the completion AppDex score that we had before. So what I'm trying to say with this is we're actively monitoring performance regressions. We're also actively doing performance monitoring before we release, during the EAP phase, and throughout the lifecycle of our application. This by no means means that you might not face performance issues. This just means on average, we don't see this. So I do want to encourage all of you, and I've said this multiple times, if you have performance issues, or if you see people talking about performance issues about WebStorm, I cannot encourage you enough to create a ticket, attach logs, and we might have some follow-up questions to fully figure out what's going on. But this is for us the best way that we can tackle your problem. I will talk about this a little bit more in the resource section, but we need those information because on a high level, we don't see it. Another thing, and talking about prioritization of things, one thing that a colleague of mine came up, and I'll just shamelessly steal this here, is we want to give you the opportunity to tell us what you value. So for that, we want you in our JetBrains subreddit to vote for the tickets you would want us to take care of in the next release. We will define a little bit of ground rules because I don't want to provide support for AngularJS again or things like that, right? There are boundaries. But in general, we want you to put you in the position to actively vote for tickets that you would want us to take care of. This can be bugs, this can be feature requests. Just tell us. We want to prioritize your ideas for the product as well. This is an initiative that we're trying for 2026.1, so we will probably announce this in our subreddit in the next days, weeks, something like that. Coming to my favorite topic, memory. And memory is really just a synonym here. Use it as performance. Some people are having memory issues. Some people are having performance issues in general with slow syntax highlighting. Some people might have just high CPU spikes, things like that. In general, I truly believe us taking the resources that are available to your system is fundamentally not a bad thing. On the other hand, it rather ensures that WebStorm and other JetBrains products run as smooth as they can. There are a little bit of the limitations of working within Java, but still, the idea is we take as many resources as needed to make sure that your software runs smoothly. The problem that occurs is if we take too much resources. Many resources is fine. Too much is less fine. And this is where you come into play. In general, how I like to look at performance, particularly if we compare it to LSP-based editors. The idea of WebStorm, and most or more often people are complaining about startup performance. The idea for startup performance, it can be a severe factor for you. I don't want to dismiss this, but we basically try to cache and understand everything about your product as good as we can so that afterwards we can ensure and make sure you have a smooth editing experience in terms of speed, performance, and accuracy. This is the idea. We're waiting at the startup time a little bit to figure out everything about your product. Whereas LSPs is as it just works on file by file basis, it has somewhat of a constant performance comparatively. If we look at those things, though, this is more like conceptually, and I do want to make this super clear. Those are not actual performance benchmarks that I ran. This is more like visualizing the concept of how we think about indexing and how it impacts performance fundamentally. This by no means mean that you might not have a bug somewhere that cause a freeze in the editor or something like that. The thing that I want to make super clear, there are a bazillion reasons that can cause performance issues. I literally had issues with a theme plugin that caused performance issues for users. So even things where you would think totally safe to use might not be. So a lot of, and I get this from a developer perspective, like I want to understand how my tool works. I want to figure those things out myself. I would personally still recommend you just creating a ticket and go on with your day instead of drowning hours into figuring out what's happening. This is usually more efficient. Our support team can figure out those things much quicker. There might just be a plugin acting up. There might just be a setting that you can disable to work around it. There are a bazillion things. So again, I want to make this clear. Like I completely acknowledge that you might face issues, but also performance issues are more often than not so specific to your particular code base, patterns you use, setup you use. All those things can have impact. So just creating a ticket will make sure that your issue is getting addressed the quickest. If you see a ticket that might seem related, oh, I have an issue in in TypeScript is causing performance issue, and you happen to use TypeScript too, I would still recommend you creating a separate ticket. Our support team might be mad about me for having to cross-link two tickets, but again, I wholeheartedly believe that this is the best way for us to know about your particular issue. The worst thing that can happen to you is that we say, this issue is already known, we will mark it as duplicate, and please follow this other ticket. So I said this before, I say this again. I would love us to help you in any way possible. So if you happen to have a point of frustration, let us know. And if performance is your point of frustration, please help us help you. And the best way for that is just submit a bug report. And this is now a little bit of a polarizing question. Why are we not just using LSP? And the answer to that is also a little bit more complicated because partially we are. But fundamentally, I want to say that LSP as a protocol is great. It's great. It provides a consistent developer experience. So if you have users that use VS Code, if you have users that use NeoVim, they get the same editing experience fundamentally on a high level. It's also very accurate result because it's literally, if we look at the TypeScript language service, it's written by the TypeScript team. So they'll know what they want to suggest. Totally makes sense. And the thing with language service also, it has a very predictable performance. It's basically, at least for TypeScript, and very much in correlation to your code base. The thing, though, is that it also comes with various limitations. LSP does not work well with cross-language support, for instance. If you are familiar with the experience that we provide for HTML and CSS in virtual files like Vue, Angular, that's something that is really hard to accomplish with LSPs, close to impossible. The specification also has gaps of what we consider a good developer experience. LSP to this day does not consider a concept of testing as part of the language framework. And as I mentioned before, the performance is great at startup. It's also okay-ish in general, but it could be way better. And we see this often, particularly in bigger code bases, where the performance of WebStorm is on average better than in VS Code or other LSP-based editors. So fundamentally, my personal take is LSP is incredibly good for basic support. And that is kind of where we're trying to go with this. Let me fill you in on something. We have been working on our new type engine for the last 2 years, I think, at this point, which is basically our idea of, okay, let's try to get type inference from the TypeScript language service to get these benefits of accuracy, but still not fully chime into the language server approach because we still want to provide a different editing experience on certain things. So we are going to run some A/B tests in a later minor version of 2025.2, and then hopefully make it finally stable for 2025.3, at least for TypeScript and TSX. The thing is, as you would imagine, the type information are critical for WebStorm in any way. Like syntax highlighting, for instance, depends heavily on types. Therefore, the changes we're making on our type engine affects every implementation for our frameworks. Angular, Vue are the ones we are looking at the most, but then also would affect Astro, would affect Svelte, and all those. We hope we can get it stable for Angular. We're pretty close with that. Vue still needs some work. But I brought up now the point, well, what about Astro and Svelte? The thing is, we added support for those a while ago. Unfortunately, and I love both those frameworks very much, like the slides are literally hosted on an Astro website. We just don't see usage of those frameworks to really, right now, our base framework implementation always requires deep integration with the TypeScript service, requires us to implement lexer, parser, understand how files work, how the dependencies work. This is just too much work for frameworks like that don't have actual usage. Okay. We are working on using the LSPs for those small frameworks. You can follow the ticket for Astro, and I will share more details very soon on that in a blog post while we're still figuring things out. Coming to an end here, because I see in the chat my co-hosts are yelling at me. If I did not address some of your concerns with this talk, please, I intentionally did not create a summary slide because I don't want to tell you what to take away with this. But if you feel like your concern has not been addressed, reach out to me on social or just schedule a call with me. Just scan that QR code. I would love to talk those things through with you. And lastly, thank you so much for listening to me. Here is also the link to the slide that has been shared in the chat, I think. Thank you. So much about I get muted.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Hey, we work together, right?
I hope so. Are we still working together?
I hate you
For?
because that was a great talk, and I wish I would have given it decades and millennia ago. That was a really good talk. Thanks for going through that. We have some good questions. Let's just jump right into them. Let's stay on time to make sure we give Lydia enough time, because I think that's going to be an awesome talk too. I'm going to start with, you want the spiciest one first or last? Give it to you. What do you do when someone's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but while he's getting his microphone set up, I'll kill a little bit more time. On this one, it's true. We got to own it. We are a mature product, which means, amongst other things, we have a long tail of all kinds of things that we support over the years. And sometimes we can get to some things, sometimes we can't. Jan, over to you.
So I asked our support team the exact same question because I looked up the open tickets that had no comment from us yet, which basically is a sign of nobody has seen it. The thing is, we very much try to reproduce an issue within a day or two. That if you haven't heard anything, this means we are able to reproduce it and work on it.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where our communication is not on par for my expectation. It's a thing that I actively want to change. If you haven't heard anything, it's a good thing because it actually means we can reproduce it and tackle this issue.
Yeah.
I also get the frustration. So I personally very much want to change this way of at least acknowledging our user, making them feel seen and heard. So that's top of
my. On both of those points, first, kudos to you. I'll go ahead and give you the pat on the back that you can't give yourself. Jan is leading a effort on WebStorm to go through things that might have fallen off of the radar, writing scripts and keeping tracks of things. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
But also, we got to own at JetBrains, we got to own the fact that sometimes we talk on tickets in private.
Yep.
When we could have maybe been talking in public, and you would at least know we heard you.
The one thing that I also want to make clear that I forgot to mention before in my talk, there are some things that we don't want to do anymore. It's just like that. There are subsystems that we created years ago that still get ticketed that is just not worth maintaining anymore. And I want to make it very clear what those subsystems are, what we take care of, what we don't want to take care of. That is, I hope this is just a minority of things, but I do want to share this. There might be things that we have just not taken care of because we don't want to. That is part of it.
Indeed. But again, we should just say it.
Yes.
Hey, let's do a speed round to get through these to make sure we, in 4 minutes, can get Lydia on. So speed round first, Fleet.
Fleet is an interesting one. From the community, it looks weird because we haven't shared updates on Fleet I think the last update was released in spring. The thing that I think is worth sharing here, Fleet is still actively developed. We're just not talking about it enough.
Well said. Hey, I'll go over the poll real quick, which
Mhm.
reflects the audience's JetBrains basis. 66% say they are JetBrains power users.
Sweet.
9% are here for the drama.
Love it.
All right. Those two are not mutually exclusive.
That's
for the record. Okay. This is an important one, and let's talk about ways that we can address this, because there's a follow-up that even file paths might be
yes.
sensitive.
So the thing is, we don't, from all the logs that I've looked into, I've not seen pieces of code particularly. I don't want to say there are none because I could not make that statement safely, but I have never seen pieces of code. What we do see are file paths, and that is, we definitely do. We also see like the stack trace that we throw, so we see like the line number and pieces like that. So if those information are sensitive to you and your company, then this might not be a good way. But there are also, we have alternative approaches of how we can do this. We can sign NDAs and all this fun lawyer stuff. We have done this with various companies. If you have issues like that, please talk to me. I would love to help that out.
There you go. Yeah, there might be a way to one-on-one with you that
Yes.
doesn't leak any sensitive information. Alexandra also mentioned about signing an NDA or recreate the problem in a GitHub visible repo.
Yes.
We know that this is putting work on all of you, but the more we can get, the better.
Yes.
Especially a reproducible case. Okay, let's get that one off the screen. Probably getting closer to the last one. Maybe we can get a couple more. The thing that is the webbish part that exhibits itself in WebStorm versus all the other IDEs. You want to talk about it?
Yes. Fundamentally, I like this analogy. Marketing hates me for it, but basically, a pyramid scheme. And now my camera died? No. Which means is all things that are available in WebStorm are available in PHP-Storm, are available in Writer, are available in IntelliJ. We basically have a 3-tier system. What is going on? We basically have a 3-tier system where web is at the very bottom, available to everyone else. Then we have specific language support like PHP, Writer, Python, .NET, not Python, Writer. And those things, they all have web support and their respective language. And then on top, we have IntelliJ that has a little bit of it, or has everything. On a super high level, those are the same features. You get the same things. It's literally written in the same code base. The Python folks now be like, well, we have a couple specific things. Yes, there are some nuances, but fundamentally, it's the same thing.
Yeah. It is correct that the one that is a little bit of an outlier is Writer.
Yeah.
But eventually, I think they catch up on just about everything.
As usual.